My name is Jeremy Houck, and I'd like to thank you for making the choice to join us here at the Greenbrier Church Online. Last Monday, I was in our shopping area, the Exchange, running a few errands, and it was lunchtime. So I made the decision that I was going to go to Sam's and get a cheap lunch. For a Monday afternoon, the cafe area was pretty full, but I did find an empty table. A few minutes later, there's this guy, and he's walking, and he can't find an empty place to sit. And he asks me, he said, "Can I join you?" I was like, "Sure." And so he sits down, and we start talking, and his cell phone goes off. He looks at who's calling him. He silenced the ringer and puts it on the table. We continue to talk, and about 5 minutes later, his cell phone rings again. He picks it up, sees who's calling him, silences it, puts it back on the table, and immediately it rings again. This time he picked up his phone, saw who was calling, and just turned it off and dropped it back on the table. He looked at me and said, "Sorry, it's my mother in law, and if I answer, she's going to have something for me to do, and I just don't have enough want to help her today." I just kind of nodded. I mean, I get it. We've all been there. Somebody calls, and we immediately know that if I answer that call, they're going to want something or they're going to need me to do something that's going to take up the rest of my day. Last week, we left Moses standing in the sand over the body of an Egyptian that he just murdered. Moses, the icon. The greatest person in the Old Testament allows his anger to turn and boil into rage, and in his rage, he kills another man. He kills an Egyptian, and he buries the body in the sand, and for a moment, he thinks he's gotten away with it. After all, he is the prince of Egypt, but nothing's ever done in secret. The next day, he's out walking around and he sees two men fighting. And so, in his most authoritative voice, he asks them, "Why are you two fighting? You're brothers." And one of them looks him right in the eye and says, "So, what do you plan on doing? Killing me like you killed that Egyptian?" Moses panicked. What he thought he had done in secret, it's out in the open. And if you can make a bad situation worse, we discover that when Pharaoh hears what Moses had done, he says that he's going to kill Moses. So Moses fled to the land of Midian. And for the next 40 years, he lives out in the wilderness tending someone else's sheep. He may be living in some backwater little town. He may be hiding out, but God still sees him. And God's not done with him yet. As a matter of fact, Moses is about to get a phone call, but it's not a call that he can silence, no matter how hard he tries. You know, a lot can happen over 40 years, and at the same time, not much can happen over 40 years. While Moses is in Midian for 40 years, he gets married, he has two kids, and he gets a job working for his father in law. Every day he gets up and he tends his father in law's sheep. He goes from living in a palace with servants that cater to his every whim, and now he's out in the elements, out in the wilderness, tending a flock of sheep that belonged to his father in law. For a moment, I want you to think about what his daily routine was like. For the last 40 years, he walks the same desert, walks the same trail, he walks with the same sheep, he has the same smell. Every routine is the same every single day. He's a shepherd, and life's not turning out the way that he dreamed. Do you remember back when Jacob and his family arrive in Egypt to live with Joseph? Pharaoh gives them the land of Goshen to set up their homes. It's land that's perfect for raising livestock, and it's sort of tucked out of the way. The Egyptians don't really go there because that's where the shepherds were. Joseph actually tells his family, when Pharaoh asks you what you do for a living, tell him you raise livestock because the Egyptians can't stand to be around shepherds. And now Moses, a man raised as Egyptian royalty in an Egyptian home, becomes what he grew up to despise. He's a shepherd. He's at rock bottom. So Moses resigns himself that he's going to spend the rest of his life in disappointment and disgust. Any dreams of grandeur, any hopes of doing anything worthwhile in his life, well, those died a long time ago. The day that Moses receives the call from God is just like any other day. He gets up with the sun, he takes his father in law's sheep out to find grass to graze on, water to drink. But it doesn't take him long to discover that this is not just some ordinary day. God's about to make a phone call, and unlike AT&T, Verizon, or even Boost Mobile, it's a call that Moses is going to have to take. One day, Moses was taking care of Jethro's flock. When Moses led the flock to the west side of the desert, he came to Sinai. There, the angel of the Lord appeared to him in flames of fire coming out of a bush. Moses saw that the bush was on fire, but it was not burning up. He said, "I will go closer to this strange thing. How can a bush continue burning without burning up?" God calls, Moses answers. And once God has him on the line, he shares his plan. He says that he has heard the cries of the people, he's seen how cruelly they're being treated by the Egyptians, and he's going to pry them loose from the grip of Egypt. He's going to get them out of that country, and he's going to do exactly what he promised Abraham. He's going to bring his descendants into a land that flows with milk and honey. Moses, so I need you to go back. I'm sending you to Pharaoh, and I need you to bring my people out of Egypt. I would imagine that 40 years ago, Moses would have jumped at the chance. 40 years ago, when he killed that Egyptian, he was ready to lead a revolt and to become the leader of the Hebrews. But man, a lot's changed over the last 40 years. Life's been hard. Moses has become humbled and broken. For the last 40 years, he's been out in the wilderness telling himself that this is all there is, that I'm a lost cause. And now God has him on the phone, and this old, worn out shepherd, he doesn't believe. He doesn't want to believe that God's calling him into action. And we discover that the icon, well, he's not all that different from us. God gives Moses a very simple plan. He says, I'm going to send you, and you are going to bring my people out. That's the plan. God has it all figured out. I want you to notice that God doesn't ask Moses for advice. He doesn't say, hey, Moses, would you mind doing a cost analysis on this for us? Can you figure out how to accomplish my will? God doesn't even call in a group of expert consultants to suggest viable options. He simply invites Moses to go and be a part of what he's doing. In very much the same way, I believe that the church is at a really exciting point in our history. We're on the verge of revival in our churches and in our culture, and God is saying, my plan for you is to go and to bring my people out. It's the exact same command that he gives to Moses, but I discovered that we tend to also give the same excuses in response that Moses gave to God. You see, Moses didn't want any part of God's plan. He's got accustomed to life as a shepherd. I mean, sure, there are days that he longed for something more, to be part of something greater, but life with the sheep is familiar. It's safe. Plus, Moses is too old, too tired, too weary. God needed to call someone else, which sounds an awful lot like the same things and excuses that we say for not wanting to get involved in the work of the kingdom. You know, I've thought maybe Moses doesn't understand what God's calling him to do. I wonder sometimes if he thinks that God is asking him to be the deliverer of Israel, because God never said that. God said that he would deliver Israel. All Moses has to do is be the instrument of that deliverance. God's going to do all the work. Moses is just going to be the one that God works through. It's a huge difference. God has a plan, but he never expects us to carry out that plan. God's going to pull it off. He simply wants us to be the instrument of his action. After all, it's his reputation at stake, not mine, not yours. All he asks is that we give ourselves to him so that he can use us to do his will. But Moses begins to lay out all of the reasons he's not the guy, all of the reasons that God needs to go somewhere else. And we discover that at this point in his life, Moses is much more broken than he is righteous. His first excuse is, I don't have the authority or power. We read in Exodus 3:11, but Moses protested to God, who am I to appear before Pharaoh? Who am I to lead the people out of Israel out of Egypt? At first, that sounds kind of humble, doesn't it? God, you can't use me. I'm so weak. I'm so unimportant. Surely there are other people that have so much more to offer. But actually, it's not humility, it's disobedience. I can just hear God replying, wait a minute, Moses, did you not hear the plan? All you have to do is be in the right place at the right time and watch me work. It's going to be great. Just keep your heart prepared, make sure you're walking in obedience, and watch me as I deliver my people out of Egypt. The struggle is that Moses didn't see himself the way that God saw him. I mean, who in their right mind would have singled out a sun weathered 80-year-old shepherd to face down the mightiest king in the world? Moses had been out in the pasture for 40 years. He's completely lost touch with people. He'd been raising a little family, living with and working for his father in law. For 4 decades, the man can't even scrape up enough money to build a little place of his own. Moses looks at what he has accomplished in life and he refused to believe what God was telling him. You know, it's easy to forget. It's easy to forget that we don't see things the way that God sees them. God has always done his greatest work through the most unlikely people because it's his work. We're just being invited to come along and be a part of what he's doing. So Moses offers a second excuse. I don't have all the answers. Skipping down to verse 13, if I go to the people of Israel and tell them, the God of your ancestors has sent me to you, they will ask me, what is his name? Then what should I tell him? Does that sound familiar? How many times have we refused to get involved because we're afraid that somebody's going to ask us a question that we don't have the answers for? I mean, what if somebody asks you a deep theological question like, how did they fit the dinosaurs on the ark? I mean, we don't know, and we don't want to look foolish. Sorry, God, I can't be a part of what you're doing because I don't have all the answers. You know, this is just another excuse based on our pride. Our pride says if I don't have a ready comeback, if I say I don't know, then people will laugh at me. That's not true. Intelligent, thoughtful people don't laugh. They realize that nobody has all the answers. So when Moses tries to use this excuse, God has an immediate reply. He promises Moses that the elders of Israel will listen, and through a series of miracles, Pharaoh will let all of Israel go. Moses, you might not have all of the answers, but I guarantee you that you will have all of me. And that's enough. But Moses has another lame and weak excuse. His third excuse is, well, they won't respect me. In chapter 4, verse 1, we read, what if the people of Israel do not believe me or listen to me? What if they say, the Lord did not appear to you? Moses is still fighting with his pride. He's still not ready to turn loose of it. He's got too much self respect to look like a foolish, senile old man. I mean, he's been a shepherd for the last 40 years. He looks like, dresses like, smells like an old shepherd. If he were to walk into Egypt, into the palace, he would look like a country bumpkin come to town. Nobody wants to look foolish. Moses doesn't want to back to his old home and come off as some crazy old half-wit. I mean, he may not be living his best life in the desert, but at least he still has his dignity. He might be obscure, he might be a nobody, he might be over the hill, but he was safe. Nobody was laughing at him. I would imagine, in my mind, I picture God in that bush, just kind of shaking his head. Is this guy growing deaf? Does he refuse to listen to me? God had just told him that the elders of Israel would listen to him, but Moses is stuck in the world of hypotheticals. His excuse begins with, what if? The word what if, those always are and always will be the words of worriers. Every worrywart is stuck behind those two words. What if this happens? What if they do that? What if this takes place? So many great works in the kingdom of God never get accomplished because instead of trusting God and acting in faith, we bow down before the idol of what if. Moses couldn't believe what God is calling him to do because in his pride, he's so worried about what he would look like in these imaginary scenarios. He pictures himself back in Egypt. He visualizes all the splendor of the Egyptian court and all those well dressed, sophisticated men and women. And he says, well, they can't respect me. How? I mean, they won't respect me. They'll just stare at me and laugh at me. So God does something that he's never done before. God shares the ability to do miracles with Moses, and Moses can feel the power of God rushing through his vein. God gives Moses two miracles to perform. His staff will turn into a snake and then turn back into a staff, and his hand will turn leprous and then become healthy again. God's not sending Moses before Pharaoh with a few party tricks or sleight of hand magic. He allows Moses to perform these mighty signs. The Lord certainly has Moses' attention, just not his cooperation. Because instead of falling on his knees in obedience, he hides behind a fourth excuse. I've never been good with words. Looking at verse 10, but Moses pleaded with the Lord, oh Lord, I'm not very good with words. I never have been, and I'm not now, even though you have spoken to me. I get tongue tied and my words get tangled. You know, I've read that the fear of public speaking is our biggest fear. I mean, the fear of death comes in second to talking in front of people. Some of you get it. Some of you, when you stand up in front of a group of people, you get scared, your knees knock, you want to throw up, your mind goes blank. Moses might have grown up in the Egyptian palace and had all of the tutors and all of the education anyone could want, but that was 40 years ago. For the last 40 years, he's just been out talking to a bunch of sheep. He's lost his edge. He's lost his ability to speak up, to speak out. And now God wants him to get in front of all of these educated people, all of these eloquent people, and speak. Moses says, I'm physically not able to do that. I'm sorry, God, I'm out. And yet, with every excuse, there's divine intervention. God asks Moses, what do you think made your mouth, your teeth, your lips, your tongue? Oh, right. That was me. And since I made your mouth, I'm going to be right there with you, giving you the words to say as you need them. I don't know if you've ever noticed this before, but God doesn't give us wisdom on credit. He doesn't give us a bag of words or phrases that we just carry around in our back pocket and we pull them out whenever we need them. God gives us the words and wisdom at the moment that we need them. God says, Moses, I'm going to be with you. I'm going to move your mouth. I'm going to give you the right words at the right time. It is the perfect plan, but it requires a mustard seed of faith. God's been calling Moses to put his pride away and to trust him, and we're almost there. But there's a fifth excuse. God, I don't want to. Look at verse 13. But Moses again pleaded, Lord, please send anyone else. You know, God, I'm sure that there's someone else living in Egypt right now that would do a better job. There's probably somebody younger, somebody more educated, somebody with more money, with more pull, anybody that could do a much better job than me. There has to be somebody in Egypt that's more qualified than an 80-year-old, sun-baked, leather-skinned, worthless shepherd. Do you ever feel like that? I mean, the Lord invites you into the work of his kingdom, and you immediately look around and go, me? Did you notice the guy in the next row? What about that lady over there? I mean, he has a degree. She has experience. His job requires him to do a lot of thinking and to speaking in front of people. She's been a school teacher for 20 years. His family is grown up and they're gone. He's got all kinds of free time. Those people are perfect. I mean, I still have kids at home and debt and high blood pressure and crooked teeth. And the clothes in my closet are so old that they were in style and then went out of style and then came back into style. And now they're out of style again. And once again, Just like with every excuse that we try to come up with, God replies, I know everything about you. I know how underqualified you feel, but if you would just step out on faith a little, I can accomplish amazing things. Here's the thing that I need you to see today. God doesn't hear all of our excuses and say, you know what, you're right. I have no idea what I was thinking. How foolish of me to even dial your number to make this call. I mean, there's no way that you could do anything in my kingdom. So you just sit there and you just continue to take up space and be comfortable and everything's going to be okay. That doesn't happen. We read that then the Lord became angry with Moses. God has provided Moses everything he needs to act in faith, yet Moses continues to hold on to his pride and make one excuse after another. Our struggle with pride is seen in the fact that we are far more comfortable making excuses than we are working in God's kingdom. As we get ready to make our way to the table today, we need to take a moment to try to figure out how are we going to deal with the sin of pride in our lives? I mean, I understand that it's hard to even imagine living a life in which we care so much more about what God thinks about us than what the world thinks about us. But we're being invited to go to the table with the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords, the name that is above every other name, and it's his table. And we're being invited to go to his table and leave our pride behind. We're being invited to gather at the table as an acknowledgement that we can't save ourselves. Our salvation is a gift from God because of his amazing mercy and grace and love for us. And if we were to actually acknowledge the magnitude of his gift, we would have no other option but to humble ourselves before him. Our arrogance and pride say, my desires come first. My comfort is more important than God's will. But the cure to pride is to submit to God, to humble ourselves, and to acknowledge that God is greater than we are. And we are in desperate need of him. It's an understanding that this is his kingdom. And if we're honest, too often we start to think the world is all about me and my wants and my peace and my comfort. But eventually we're going to learn from Moses that a life of humility is different. A humble life knows that life is all about God. Moses is eventually going to humble himself and join God in the work of his kingdom. And at the table, we're being invited to humble ourselves as well and to join God in the greater work that he is doing. He is going to provide all of the power, all of the opportunity. He's going to provide everything that we need. Just like at the table, God provides everything that we need. All we have to do is show up and allow God to work through us so that he can do his work in this world. I hope that you have a wonderful time of conversation around the table today. Never forget how deeply you're loved and how much God wants you to join him in the greater work that he's doing. Have a great week. I look forward to seeing you very soon.